Hello and welcome to the Denver Data Web Digital Strategy Chat. We are a digital strategy company. We help our clients overcome unique challenges with a goals-focused approach to web development, web design, and digital marketing. I'm Sarah Joswiak, the digital marketing analyst at Denver Data Web, and today we have Justin.
Hello, I'm Justin. I'm one of the web design and developers here at Denver Data Web.
And thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Today, we are talking about A/B testing. What is A/B testing? It is a method for experimenting with online, experimenting with online user experience and conversion optimization. A/B testing can be useful for testing features on your website, landing pages, apps, digital ads, and anywhere else that you're looking to increase conversions online or sometimes even offline in some cases. Real life, yay. Similar to other experiments, A/B testing includes an A, which is the control, or rather the piece of the experiment that stays the same, and then a B, the variant, or the piece of the experiment that changes. And comparing and contrasting the look, performance, and metrics between the control and the variant is why we call it A/B testing. And although it sounds pretty technical, A/B testing can be pretty fun and creative. Say someone on your team comes up with an idea to add a larger call to action button to your landing pages. And then someone else on your team says, no, it's fine, keep it the same the way it is. That's a great time for an A/B test. So the next step with that would be to create a variation of your regular landing page with the new features, and then swap out that landing page on only some of your ads. And some ad platform actually have features that allow for A/B testing back and forth that do it automatically. And once that's done, after a few weeks or a few months, you compare the behavior and conversion data between the two landing pages and keep what works best as your new constant. And then you do it again. You do it over and over again over time for your website. And over time, you realize your website, your sales, and your overall business improves dramatically. And this is just one very general example of how to A/B test. So Justin, I gave the real world kind of layman's term example of what an A/B test is. Can you go into like the more technical side of what it would entail?
Yeah, so the more technical side of A/B testing would be determining how a layout should be presented. It can be as a page as a whole. So say you have a service page that might be, you want to completely change the way the information is presented to a user. You could even you could use the whole page as an A/B test there. So there's many ways of A/B testing.
Well, cool. So you mentioned like changing the whole page. In short, we've kind of talked about how in most of the time you want to change like one feature or another, but changing the whole page, that seems significant. Can you go into like why you would want to do that?
Yeah, so if you have maybe you're moving to a new website design, or you say you have a new service offering, you would want to maybe have you have an existing page that is maybe performing okay but not that well, and then you have a completely new design that you're wanting to maybe redesign your whole website with. You could push that layout out to your existing site, maybe as like an A/B test to see if your design will perform better in your new website, or if maybe you need to scrap it and try something else. That way you don't have to redesign your whole website. You can you can kind of A/B test just one page and say, okay, this is going to work. Let's go ahead and apply this to our new site design.
Very cool. And then also, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but in your opinion, why do we do this? Why do we A/B test? We've kind of talked about it a little bit, but
yeah, I think it's the root of it is to improve user experience, and to increase conversion and get users to where they need to be and where they want to be faster. So
nice. So in short, it helps people grow their business and make more money and make more sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So why don't we dive into some best practices for A/B testing? So in short, we've kind of talked about how, and you actually mentioned this earlier. It kind of takes the guesswork out of a lot of things. You're not guessing what your users are going to do next. It's really telling you what your users are doing so you can make better decisions. Is there any other kind of research that you would maybe want to do before diving into your A/B test decisions, or even just like deciding on your B?
I would say probably you use the tools that you have at your disposal, such as like Google Analytics, Hotjar, and use those to collect data before you begin optimizing. It helps to figure out what pages you want to actually optimize for before you start just kind of throwing things at it.
And additionally, you can also do competitor data. A lot of times, looking at your competitor websites and seeing things that they're doing, and changing it a little bit to fit your company messaging and your company ideal. Competitor data has a lot to do with your A/B or your pre-research before conducting A/B tests. Another idea is to focus group with your coworkers, or even just whoever's around at the time. We've talked about this in the past also. A lot of times, and I feel like everyone does this, you come up with a really, really good idea, and it's really good in your own head, and you really want to try it out. And a lot of times, actually, what happens is it doesn't, at least when I bring stuff up, it doesn't get shut down by coworkers, but it gets expanded upon. So a lot of times, I mean, before you go through the trouble and the effort of building your B, focus group it with your coworkers and work on that to decide maybe some ways that you can improve your idea before you create that B. Oh, okay. And another thing that is very, very important, when you create your B for your A/B testing, document what you're doing, log it, log maybe a schedule that you would want to look back at that, and just keep very, very detailed descriptions of what's happening, because it's so easy to go back and try and analyze your A/B test in the future, and you can't even remember what you changed or when you changed it or how you did it or why you did it. The why is a big part of it also. So in short, decide on what you want to do based on research, focus group it with your coworkers, come up with a solid plan, and then log everything that you're doing and keep those details so that when you go back at it, you know what you're looking at. Justin, do you want to maybe go into some steps for A/B testing and like some ways that you can go from idea to conception?
Yeah, so we can talk about how like some of the steps that we take.
Implementation. Sorry, I said it wrong.
No, yeah. So some of the steps that we take, and this is kind of how we already talked about. The first one was kind of collecting data, using using any tools that you have currently, Google Analytics, Hotjar, to begin optimizing, trying to find what pages you want to optimize for. First, you want to maybe look for pages that have a low conversion rate or high drop-off rate, and something that you can improve quickly. The next step would be identifying the goals. So you want to understand exactly what metrics you want to use to determine your A/B variation. So you really want to understand what will make it successful. What is this metric that says, hey, this is a success? So, and it could be an increase in clicking on a certain button, like the example we gave earlier, like increasing a button size. How we would measure that is increased engagement on that button. Are there more users hovering over that button and clicking on that button using the Hotjar data? So that would be, that's a success if we're getting more of that.
Also, to note, Justin and I did a digital strategy chat on Hotjar a few weeks back that we can link in the comments after this chat also.
Yes.
Hotjar is really cool.
It is. It really is. So just a side step, Hotjar will actually give you if you haven't seen that video, to give you basically a screenshot or a recording of how a user is using your website. It'll actually show you a kind of like a heat map of, a user has clicked here, a user hasn't clicked here, but that's a side topic. We'll go ahead and link the video below.
Yeah, Hotjar is how we actually not only analyze our A/B tests, but come up with a lot of our next B steps.
Exactly.
Our next variants.
Right. That's kind of where we use our collecting data. That's where we collect most of our data. The third step is generating these hypotheses, and you were kind of already discussing this, but basically identifying the goals that you can begin testing these A/B tests around. So why you think they will be better than the current version, writing those down so you can come back and you can verify your hypothesis later on. The next one would be creating variations. So this is the actual step of implementing these desired changes to the ad copy or elements across your site or a mobile app. This might be changing, like we said, the color or the size of a button, swapping the order of the page elements, even hiding navigation elements or changing the ad copy. This is where you would implement that in this step. The next step is actually starting the experiment. We're going to run the experiment, let it run, collect some data using your tools. You want to let it run for a good amount of time, but you don't want to let it run too long. Some of the things that the reason why you don't want to let it run too long is Google can see that as as you trying to trick the search engine. So we'll talk more about that later, about how long you should run your ads, or sorry, your A/B tests. And then analyze results is your next step. Is once your experiment is complete, it's time to analyze your data from your results. So that's when you go back into your Google Analytics, your Hotjar, whatever tools you're using, and analyze that data, see if your hypothesis was correct or not.
And then you start all over again.
And the cycle restarts.
It never ends. So if you're not doing A/B testing, start now, because it's really it's very telling, and it's the best way to improve your site. And it's also, I mean, the sooner you get started on it, the better. You get in the swing of things eventually. It's a little difficult at first. I think the most difficult part for me is logging everything properly and then going back and knowing exactly what to look at. The doing part is kind of fun. It's the analysis part that gets a little tricky, especially since there can be a bit of time in between implementation and analysis. We'll talk about some A/B testing mistakes, and we've kind of touched on these a little bit already. The number one is kind of what I was just talking about, forgetting about it. The test can run sometimes for weeks or months at a time. A lot of times the general rule is we let it run for a month and then we look back at it. And if there's not enough data, we let it run for a little longer to look back at it. And when that happens, especially like when you're at a firm like us and there's other priorities to focus on, there can be a tendency to kind of just let it run and forget about it, which we'll talk about in a minute why not to do that. But it does tend to happen occasionally, so that's something to watch out for. Another thing is testing too many things at once, and this is probably the easiest one to fall into, because once you start coming up with ideas, and Justin, you can talk about this too, we tend to throw so many ideas at the wall, and there's also this tendency, let's just throw everything up the wall and see what sticks. And that can be very tempting and very fun, but it can also be a lot harder to analyze when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're throwing, 5 different changes, I talked about earlier, changing a whole layout, but that's kind of that what you're testing there. If you're saying you want to keep the same layout, but throw 5 different changes, say I want to change the button size, I want to change the image, I want to change this headline, I want to change all this at once. You don't really know when you're analyzing your metrics what actually caused your metrics to either fail or succeed.
And that's always fun when you're like, it's working, but why? What part of it is doing well? And then you have to start all over again. You have to A/B test all your Bs, which is cumbersome. Frustrating. Also, another thing, we touched on this a little bit already, don't give or allow your A/B tests to enough time to collect data. It can be so tempting to go back and see that it's not working and want to change something, and we're guilty of that also at Denver Data Web. We have the tendency to we throw something out there and we look back at it a week or two later and we're like, why isn't it working? And then we change something else and then we do it again. And that's not great, because then you're not actually getting data. You're just you're hoping to get data. And also kind of what I mentioned earlier was occasionally we'll run it for a month and then look back and we just don't have enough data. And there can be kind of the knee-jerk reaction to try and get an analysis out of a small amount of data. It is best to really set a goal for what kind of data you want to see. I want to see a good number of impressions, a good number of clicks, and this many conversions before I analyze it. So setting yourself very detailed notes and very detailed goals for what you want out of the A/B test is the best practice for that. Justin, is there anything else that you want to add to that, to the A/B testing mistakes?
I think the only thing is what we were learning earlier is when we were kind of browsing around is that, Google does see these, if you run the experiment too long, it can see, like I mentioned, is that Google could see you as trying to deceive the search engines, and it can actually rank you for that. So don't just submit create an A/B test and just leave it out there for years. Run your tests, get your data, and then finish your tests. Make sure you swap out that A/B test to just go to one page instead of continuously sending users to different pages. So
yeah, in addition to, landing pages aren't necessarily always ranked on Google, but in the case of organic pages, absolutely, that can definitely happen. And you can A/B test on organic pages, ad pages, anything like that. One thing that can often happen if you're leaving your what is the word I'm looking for? Not unranked. Not unindexed pages. If you're doing A/B testing with non-indexed pages, one thing that can happen is that you end up diluting your data because you're leaving it out there too long. And say you're putting out something that's very timely for May, and you're going to have a lot of data to analyze throughout May, and something happens and you don't end up looking back at it until mid-June. It's possible that the data that comes in afterward is diluting or making your data less powerful and less useful. So that's a big one to pay attention to as well.
It's a good one. I think that's all I had to add for mistakes.
Yep. Just, is there anything else you wanted to talk about for A/B testing, or should we end a little early?
Let's see. I think we have covered most of the A/B testing stuff. I'd say if there's anything else that that we did not cover, I'd say maybe leave a comment, and then we can maybe wrap up and follow up to those comments.
Absolutely. Well, sometimes we end early, and I think this is one of those days. I think we did cover a lot, and I think we're pretty much done. Look for our digital strategy chat each week at this time on Fridays. Be sure to check our website at denverdata.com, or our YouTube channel, which you can now find at denverdata.com/YouTube. And also be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.